So this is the season where extracurricular activities kind of get started with their importance and with their applications. A couple of fancy programs, at least for summer programs, which is not all that extracurricular activities are. A couple of summer programs have already had deadlines. For those of you that are applying to them, we've been in communication about this. Like if you're applying to RSI, if you're applying to TAS, which nobody is because it's kind of weird. If you were applying to the first round of YYGS, then all good. With the so things are moving with extracurricular planning, at least for summer programs. In reality, they're moving all the time. Extracurricular activities being, and I'll go over this just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. I know it's very fundamental for a lot of you, but I'll go over college admissions in a nutshell and show that extracurricular activities a very large component of the three-legged stool that is American and Canadian college admissions. So, but to go over this, we're going to go over this in full as well as some nuances and details. The way that I do a presentation like this every year because it's and multiple as I'll also do this year because it's important and because the extracurricular activities are really hard to distinguish among. Even for those of us that have been doing them for a long time, and things pop up very quickly, things get selected very quickly. So always kind of very organic and always kind of in movement. But I'll shut up and we'll actually start the oh so fun PowerPoint presentation. So as as I said, I do this presentation a lot. This is the first time I've done things this way because I kind of wanted to throw something different into the mix, and I've been getting some reels on Instagram for kind of passion and so on and so forth, which is the buzzword that everybody talks about when speaking about extracurriculars. So I wanted to start off with that, not to necessarily give a position on it, but just to kind of give food for thought. So the first thing I wanted to go over, and if any of you are following applying to college on Reddit, TikTok influencers, there'll be this phenomenon called applying sideways, which was brought into the mainstream like 15 years ago on MIT's admissions blog and has sort of over the last couple of years become a rallying cry for people that don't want to go the normal or the kind of angular, real specific, deep way of extracurricular activities that a lot of people will promote, that a lot of influencers and so forth will promote. But just to give you the quote, and you can obviously read, but just to emphasis, applying sideways means don't do things because they'll think you get into MIT or Harvard or Caltech. Instead, you should study hard, be nice, and pursue your passion because then you'll spend high school doing all the right things. Maybe they should copy edit. And as a complete side effect, you'll be cast in the best light possible for competitive college admissions. Maybe that's again, I think probably, with everything, there's waves, there's ebbs and flows. And now that you have the whole college admissions influencer community that's promoting this kind of angular approach, it seems that maybe this applying sideways phenomenon is where you're really just embracing your passions and doing what you want is is something that is the new kind of road. And I wanted to bring this up in particular because first of all, I don't know if I really agree with it, and second, because it sets up this next video very well. And I'll start this in a second. This fellow is Scott Galloway. He's a professor of marketing at NYU Stern, and he has really an interesting standpoint on the notion of passions. And he's speaking to MBA students here, and he does swear. I think so. It's like 10 o'clock on a Sunday. Sorry to get you exposed to swearing, but just to kind of prepare you, apply. He's a little bit of a dramatic fellow, it seems. But just I'll shut up and let me see if I okay. I'm going to turn up the volume there. I'm going to play this and holler at me if there's weird technical stuff.
You will ever hear.
Okay, sorry. Are people raising their hands because there's technical stuff? Please chat me if you can't hear something. Is that it? Here, let's see if I can work the here, let's see. Can I get this? Let me see. I don't know how to I don't know how to go into the hand raising thing. So if there's a technical problem, please chat it. And I'll start this just a little bit back. Um,
For some reason, we
okay, well, we have people raising their hands, so please tell me what's going on. Let's see what we got because I don't know how to check and raise. Oh, here we go. Let me see. Is this it? All right, I'm going to give Mark Jackson. Allow us to talk. Here, let me unmute you. Has to unmute. Can you not hear what's going on?
Yeah, you can't hear it, and chat is turned off, so we can't chat.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. All right, that's terrible. Boy, what's absolutely awful. Here, let me open chat. Let me see. Chat previews. How interesting. Okay. To webinar chat. All right. So with the okay, then I'll forego all of the details with that, and let me figure out how to fix the chat issue. That's something that I need to. So let me just stop sharing for a moment and go into the technical parts of this. But essentially, and that's lousy because it's a really nice kind of presentation that the fellow winds up giving. But essentially, saying the worst advice that you ever get in this. In that little seminar section that they're at is follow your passions, and he gives a really interesting example or some really sweet examples, some clever examples of individuals that are coming to speak, and the people that have pursued their passions are already rich, and that people are going to stand up there and tell people, tell students, tell MBA students that. After making all of this money, billions of dollars in iron ore smelting, that they should follow their passions. And this fellow Scott Galloway says, no, don't follow your passions. It's ridiculous. What you need to do is find out what you're really good at, find your skill set, and then devote the thousands of hours of that, what it takes to putting some kind of effort into that skill set and mastering it. That way, it avoids the pitfall of pursuing your passion that where if you encounter an obstacle, then you start thinking it might not be for you. It might not be your passion. So the point is, this is again the kind of the counterpoint to the whole to the applying sideways section, the applying sideways aspect of the of college admissions is focus on doing what you do well. Don't focus on necessarily what you absolutely love. So in the as I said, let me get the chat sorted out, and then from there, attendees can chat with. Okay, there we go. So I think that now the chat should be set up. How awful, how annoying. Let me see. Panelists can chat with hosts and panelists. Attendees can chat with hosts and panelists. I think I'm host and panelist. So if you want to chat, I think that it should be available now. With the thank you so much for sharing, Mark. So yeah, not hearing this
follow your
correct. Okay. If you're not hearing that, if you are hearing that, you'd like me to continue with the video, great. Okay. The voice cuts out. Okay. Thank you. All right, forget it then. Okay, let's not then try the tech thing with YouTube and no dice. So with the but you get the sentiment. The point is that the that with passion, it's I think very hard to it's very hard to to follow that and to maintain it in the face of obstacles. And another issue is, and he doesn't speak about this in this video, but in another one, that in so many cases people's passions fall into, and this isn't really the case with our group so much, but athletics, music, entertainment, things that are the sexy fields where only the top 1% are really the super successful group because it's such a competitive industry. Much more accessible is something along the lines of tax law, where it's not the most sexy thing in the world, but a lot of people are but if you have the strength to do it, you're going to fly private and have a really nice looking bank account. Okay. With the and yes, I'll share the video and the link. And actually, let me see for the sake of doing that right now. If you'd like to check it out in the meantime, here I suppose that I can share the link. Okay, we got that. Can I chat that now? Does that work? Yeah, I think that should be it. With so if you wanted to check it out yourself, please. Um, all right, great. Get out of that. Go into that. I don't want to beautify that slide. And here we go. Wonderful. Okay. Now with the with the idea of passion. In my experience, as I say here, there are really two groups of students that generally speaking, at like age 14, at going into ninth grade, tend to know what their passions are, and they seem to be kind of more or less accurate about it. Engineering students that have been, as I say, taking apart and putting back together remote control since they were 5. Those are kids that, that they're just not going to do anything else. And I didn't include programming students in here because programming kids can go a lot of different ways. Their skill sets seem to spill over into math, into analytics, into finance stuff. But the engineering kids, especially the mech kids, the ones that have been taking things apart, putting them back together, it seems in my experience that they kind of continue and persist. Um, the other group of students that tend to know what they want to go into, kids that are kids of individuals in the medical field who also want to go into the medical field. I think statistically this is borne out as well. With medical families, there tends to be that heritage with and those types of students they don't deviate. Everybody else at age 14, they don't know really their passions. Even if you wanted to follow a passion, what would it be at that age? I think that looking at the NYU Stern professor's input is probably good. We consider the strengths, we look at what the student's good at, and then we kind of fake it till you make it. And I think that that's something that he says is very in that video that didn't play. Something that he says is very significant. He says that when you master something and you're really good at it and you get all of the financial and economic accoutrements that come along with it, it feeds back into it and it makes you passionate. If somebody is, they don't go into the idea of being a tax lawyer and really to embrace like what they're passionate about. But after, as I said, flying in a private jet, making 7 figures, doing this, that, and the other, being a master of their craft, it gives positive feedback enough to where you do really, kind of develop passion for something that you're interested in. Um, but long story short, the takeaway with all of this is number one, in my opinion, I think that passion and that especially getting tossed around as much as it is kind of overrated. Uh, because it's just something that not a lot of individuals especially at the age that we're looking at, a formative age, have really gravitated toward. And I think probably a more practical way of doing things. And there's always shades of gray in here. It might not be the most inspirational way, but it'd be the most practical way is by pursuing the student's strengths. With all of this, though, the interesting thing is that there really is a lot of overlap, right? People are as I just said, they're kind of passionate about generally stuff that they're good at. So, case by case basis, but just something to consider when we're tossing around the word, passion that has become kind of a little bit of an inside joke in college admission circles because it's so overused. Now, with all of that in mind, let's go into actually what we're going to be talking about today, because that was all tech issues notwithstanding the preamble. So today we're going to be going over, generally speaking, what the personal profile entails, as we've spoken about before, and I'll go into this again. Extracurricular activities, personal profile, one of the 3 kind of pillars of college admission. We're going to go over progression from one year to the next, from 9th to 10th, 10th to 11th, 11th to 12th, summer programs that'll move the needle, case studies of students that are actually mortal with in the past I've given case studies and they're like, because it really it looks good and everybody's interested in the kid that gets into Princeton. But, and I've got a couple of those in there, but for the most part, it's the extracurricular profiles that I have in this presentation are, I would say, a little bit more achievable for the student that likes to sleep a normal amount per night. Calendar, how things roll with the extracurricular process over the spring in particular, and then questions. And it seems like chat is working, so please feel free to holler at me via chat. I'll get back to things as once they pop up or once we're done with the section. So to start things off, as I've said before, and I'll move through this quickly, college admissions, three-legged stool, transcripts, test scores, everything else. Today, we're talking about the everything else. One particular part of the everything else. Everything else is made up of stuff you cannot control. Ethnicity, where you go to high school, geographic area, for the purposes of this conversation, gender. And then there's stuff you can control. And the stuff you can control is how you spend your time, extracurricular activities. With the extracurricular activities and what it entails and what there is going to show up on your profile when you submit the application, any of these categories make sense. Any of these categories work. With just to keep in mind how you're going to be showcasing this, it's going to come across in the essays, in the activity section of the applications, in the resume section for colleges that allow for resumes, and in the additional information section, which pretty much every college has. And you don't want to use it as a dumping ground for like extra resume stuff, but it is there. Keep in the back of your mind that for the University of California, you will get 20 activities of 350 characters apiece to detail. For the common application, basically everyone else, you're getting 10 activities, 150 characters apiece, plus an additional information section that we do use to put in more salient, significant activities and amplify other stuff, as well as the resume sections for schools that will allow it. Penn, Cornell Business requires it. Other schools will allow for that. But when we're when like for ninth graders, when we're talking about activities and so forth, probably the activities that you're doing now, if we play our cards right, they won't even show up on the Common App activities, and they might not show up on the UC activities. So all the things that you're doing that are when you're younger or maybe fall outside of those top 10, top 20 activities, they really should kind of set up, as a springboard, a foundation to move on to other things. Because as I said, not a lot of space. But as you see, all of these categories, they really do work. I would say that the only things that really don't work for activities, in my experience, are things that are kind of inert or completely solo. Reading, video games, even esports, they don't get the respect that like mainstream non esports will get. So those things outside of watching television, those things obviously. Everything else for the most part, especially if it involves others, and even on the some you do solo flying, my goodness, that's fabulous. But in any case, you get the idea that things that are going to be kind of isolated, inert, kind of a limpet, then typically don't wind up moving the needle too much. With the rule of thumb, and there's a couple of rules of thumb, and I riff on this a lot whenever we speak for extracurricular activities. Two big rules of thumb. And there's multiple rules of thumb in this presentation. I think I've got like 5 or 6, but the two big ones, at least for right now. Number one, it's good to be round and pointy. That is, you want to be round, that you're well-rounded, that you're a Renaissance person, that you've got art, you've got leadership, athletics, community service, show that you play well with others. And then you've got a couple of pointy parts, a couple of spikes, a couple of hooks, one of which should be related to your major, because every college that you apply to is going to ask in some fashion, what do you want to major in? And why are you interested in this field of study? And you usually want to have evidence to why you're interested in the field of study. So you want to have the depth with the academic stuff, if for no other reason, just to be able to answer the essay questions. As I said, though, a couple of pointy parts. It's nice to have something else that you can really riff on that you're good at. Magic, baseball cards, anything but reading, TV, and video games. As I say here with the asterisk, the pointiness is something that's a little bit more significant for engineering and computer science students and other students that are direct entry into professional programs. When you're applying to engineering into CS, particularly at UC, you're applying directly into the College of Engineering and most of the time directly into the engineering major that you're going to be getting a degree in. So you need to have a profile that is going to show that you can be successful in that direct entry, very rigorous field of study program. It's similar for nursing. It's similar for architecture. Bachelor of Science in Nursing direct entry and Bachelor of Architecture direct nursing. So, I mean, Bachelor of Architecture direct entry. If you have a professional program that does direct admission, you need much more of the pointiness than you need the well-roundedness. And these are things that obviously we speak about and we plan on, and it's very significant during the application process. So it's not something that all of a sudden you would be surprised at. Okay, so rule of thumb number one, round, pointy. Rule of thumb number two, in my opinion, hierarchy of involvement at the top, deep, sustained academic engagement. And that really relates to everything that's going to be in the general purview of your major with competitions, research, publications, summer programs, classes, extracurriculars don't count, but still the idea is that there's a theme of being successful in the field of study that you want to go into. After that, the next one in the hierarchy is leadership, and then everything else falls after that. Leadership is significant for multiple reasons. Number one, leadership has always been coveted by American colleges. And number two, it's just a very easy way to separate, to use as a blunt instrument, separating one kid like the editor in chief of the school paper from 40 other kids that are staff writers and section editors. One or two kids that are football captains, tennis captains, basketball captains, and 20 or 30 kids that are players but not captains. So again, just an easy means of separating one student from others, in addition to the fact that leadership is something that's traditionally been coveted by colleges. And then everything else kind of cascades after that generally. And there'll be some stuff that'll be very, very significant that will not be deep sustained academic engagement or leadership. I mean, we have a student this year that's an Olympic hopeful for figure skating, and that's neither of these, and that's a massive accomplishment. But generally speaking, wide strokes here. Okay, so rule of thumb one, well-rounded, pointy parts. Rule of thumb two, academic engagement at the top, followed closely by leadership. Now, let's go into how the progression generally works, what we should be looking at as far as what we're doing in 9th, 10th, 11th, summer after 11th, and so forth. With 9th, that's probably the most basic introduction to extracurricular activities. In 9th grade, generally speaking, the big project is ensuring the student has solid study skills, making sure they've got their sea legs in high school, ensuring that they've got a non-toxic group of friends, making sure that they're getting good sleep, and hopefully real good grades. As far as extracurricular activities are concerned, it's shop and drop. It's get exposed to a whole lot of stuff, dump what you don't like or are not good at, stay with what you do like and or are very good at. There's not a lot of competitive stuff that's going to be accessible. There's not even a lot of like non-competitive stuff that can be accessible. Like you want to do hospital volunteering as a freshman, you usually won't be able to. There's usually an age restriction of 16. As far as competitive programs, you can apply to Cosmos as a rising 9th even if you want, but you're not going to really stand for the majority of students. You're not going to be really competitive until rising 11th, rising 12th. So long story short, 9th grade, it's good to get exposure. You want to get the student involved as much as you can. You want to get them a taste of a lot of different fields. Or if they already have an idea of what they want to go into, then we can go down that road. It'll just be a little bit more slim pickings than it will be in the subsequent years. But 9th grade, the foundational year. 10th grade, obviously building on the 9th grade activities. Summer involvement, that's when things get more competitive. There are, with the exception of Cosmos and like the open enrollment, or not that, like the open, no real grade restriction programs that you're applying to, the one competitive one that's for Rising 10th has been historically the Davidson Scholars Program at University of Nevada, Reno. But as unusual as that sounds, but and maybe a couple of others, but usually students don't age into the competitive ones until rising rising 11th. So significant summer involvement after 10th grade is going to be much easier to achieve than it would from rising ninth or rising 10th, pardon me. In 10th grade, we do want to kind of have the interest sort of fixed. Well, this is when at least, and I mentioned this a lot, we want to know if the student is going to be engineering or everything else, or like nursing or architecture, or one of those direct entry professional programs, because it's nice to have multiple summers to kind of build up that part of the profile. It would be also good if the student was getting the interests a little bit more fixed at this time. So again, we could have multiple summers as well as obviously school years and so forth to develop the resume that'll angle them toward their field of study. For in-school extracurriculars, as always, you want to move up in responsibility. That includes paper, marching bands. 11th grade is when you need to start developing the parts of the profile that we're going to sort of have a bow on, so to speak, that are going to be the 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 activities that bring different interests together, the most selective of the programs that you're going to be applying to. If you've been working on research, hopefully there'll be some sort of an undergrad research conference or a publication that you'll be submitting to. If you're doing competitions, you want to be competing at the highest level possible. As far as the calendar goes with the admissions timeline, for those of you who haven't been through it before, you need to get everything done that's going to be on your profile, usually by about the middle of October. Application deadlines for early action for the earliest schools like Texas and Stony Brook are 10/15. For everybody else for early action, it's 11/1. So if we are going to have a publication, a research presentation, Eagle Scout Award, that stuff needs to arrive before that time in 12th in order to honestly put it on the application. So that's what we have for, generally speaking, what the activities are going to entail. And we have a timeline, generally speaking, between 9th through 12th that you're going to move through with the activities, hopefully in a progressive manner up the step ladder, so to speak. The reason that we're speaking about this, or that this presentation is taking place now, is because of this right here, the academic programs that you're going to be applying to for summer. And there's a couple of winter and spring ones that are sprinkled in there, like the Kenyon online writing program for the winter and Spirit AI that's open all the time, and community college classes that you can take during the spring, winter, summer, or semester or quarter. But at least as far as timeline goes, now is the time to start talking about academic programs. We do want to, number one, before the winter break, ask teachers for letters of recommendation. Usually for STEM programs, it'll entail one STEM teacher. Also, during the winter break, we would like to nail down at least one program that you're going to be applying to so we can start on the writing, because that's going to be the biggest block of time that you'll have to take care of that. If you're applying to Cosmos, which a lot of students are, it's good to knock Cosmos out at the winter break. That you can build a lot off of Cosmos. And that's the way that the college application essays are set up too, is starting off with the general stuff, and then once you have that foundation, can cut things down for other programs. But by the time the winter break rolls around, we would like to have one letter of recommendation nailed down just to get out ahead of the herd, and one summer program that you're going to be applying to nailed down just so we can utilize the winter break as effectively as possible. Now, what are these programs? Again, rules of thumb. Specifically for the individual programs. Number one, if you're going to be a life science student, typically you need some kind of a structured program. And my little aside for all of this, the little clever thing is that not a lot of people have a wet lab in their garage. If you're going to wind up doing something with dissection or anatomy and physiology, you will typically need to do so at a university campus. That's not the case with humanities, social sciences, and computer science, which are largely DIY. You don't need some kind of a structured program in order to pursue those effectively over the summer. You do kind of need it for like three-dimensional kind of engineering type stuff, so to speak. You don't need it. I guess you kind of maybe need it for CE for the few programs that are available. So I guess everything for engineering kind of is under that. But if you're going to do mechie, if you're going to do civil, if you're going to do materials, if you're going to do chemie, you probably should have a summer program that you're working with, or you there's not probably if the summer programs would be prominent on the menu, on the presentation of options that we would wind up giving. Not that you necessarily have to do them. It's just that you know you want to if like you know price and time are no and conflicts are no objects, then it's helpful to have the summer programs. I would say um, the really fancy ones, and here we're going to go over uh, programs of different echelons. The programs that are elite and rarefied that students will largely apply to when they're current 11th for the rising 12th summer. And there are only a handful of them, and maybe a couple might work their way in there. Like I don't have like SSP, and there's like single digit admit rate programs that aren't having here. But in any case, this is the traditional one. B of A student leaders that isn't open yet this year, and B of A has been very cagey about if that leadership program will open. But B of A is tremendous. We've had like one student do it, and he was a Stanford admit. Really, really good for business, really good for community involvement, really good for leadership. But like I said, application not yet open, and we'll see. I think only for Rising 12th. Second, Clark Scholars at all places. Texas Tech University in Lubbock select 12 students to do full on independent research under a faculty member. Everybody knows that it's been around for a long time. Same thing with RSI. That's the elite of the elite. RSI is the pipeline to the Ivies. That one is intense. 2% acceptance rate, maybe they had it on the website. 2%, maybe 1.5%. 50 domestic kids, 50 international kids. TAS, the Telluride Scholars Program, that's a weird quasi cultish program, and it's gotten slammed in the media lately. It's a humanities program that is really kind of getting turned into a kind of academically dogmatic, uh, like I said, sort of weird summer cult. So not a lot of students apply from our neck of the woods. And then MOP for MOSP. The next level, top tier programs. These are programs that are great. A good number of them are free. A good number of them will give stipends. Uh, and they're all hard. They're not quite the rarefied air, as I said, of the other ones, but they're still exceptional. For life sciences, you're gonna have Simons, Jackson Lab. Simons at Stony Brook, Jackson Lab is a nonprofit lab in Maine. Simmer, the immunology summer program at Stanford. Grips, the genomic research program at Stanford. Both of those are free, and I think for Bay Area students, almost primarily because they're day programs. Grips, I do believe, has the opportunity to apply for a stipend. For math programs, you've got Ross, Promise, and Sumac, the holy trinity of game theory summer programs. Garcia is for students that want to do materials science and engineering. That's at SUNY Stony Brook as well. There's like almost no other programs that offer that because not a lot of people want to really do materials. So compared to the other fields in engineering, so Garcia is one of the few kind of the lone ones that do that. HSHSP, that's been hit or miss lately, and I don't know if they're open this year. It's at Michigan State. The last I saw was costing money, so I might knock that one down. The NASA programs are always good. Obviously, Gene Lab's really good, as well as all the internships that I don't know if are yet updated because of the government shutdown that was slowing things down for a while, but they do have internships on their website. Another group you could put in there are NIH, National Institute of Health internships. SSP, Caltech Summer Science Program. It's been around since 1959. And MNTSI, a summer program that's run by the Wharton School of Business and School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at UPenn. I think 30% of the students that are in the undergrad program, the Jerome Fisher program for management and technology, have come through MNTSI. So Jerome Fisher is a combined program between the Wharton School of Business and the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. It was the first one out there that did this kind of tech business type thing. And MNTSI is the summer program that recently, the information I saw generally feeds into that program. By the way, all of this is recorded. So once you get past the stuff with the video at the beginning, you can check this out to your heart's content and feel free to ask me questions on them. I'll ask Lisa to send out the update of the updated recording. So these are the next level. So moving past that, now we have programs that are still very, very good. And if you're admitted, even I mean, at any level, really fabulous. Davis Young Scholars Program, mostly animal and plant biology. Cosmos, which everybody in our area applies to. Rumor has it that 250 students applied from Mission San Jose alone. It's got to be like an 8 to 10% acceptance rate from our area. Cluster contingent, bugs and bones and like marine invertebrates at UC Santa Cruz, not as hard to get into as like AI at UC San Diego. But Cosmos, early February deadline, that is on most students' menus for STEM if you have not done it before. SSTP, there's a couple of those, one at Iowa, one at Florida. One is for Rising 12th only. The other one is really specific for life sciences. And we have a large group on here that tend to be very selective, that are still not free, sometimes subsidized in the case of Cosmos. But like I said, they add to the student's profile. They're not like pay to play things or revenue generators for schools. With the starter programs, you could probably make the argument that a lot of them are revenue generators, which does not mean that they're not good. In Spirit AI, for instance, it's a for-profit program. It's a third-party program. I've never had contact with them personally, so I'm not recommending them for that reason. But as I've mentioned to many of you, Riley, our writing director, a couple of months ago came to me, or last January, came to me and said, the past couple of years, every student that has done in Spirit AI has produced a good essay about what they've done there. So if you're an intro computer science kid, if you want to see how to do computer science application, it's like a 25-hour online class. Half of it is a crash course in Python. The other half is like the applied principles from Python that do predictive modeling for criminal recidivism rates, corn fungus development in Iowa, all kinds of cool projects. But long story short, in Spirit AI, third-party program, almost never recommend those, but very good. Girls Who Code is great also. More of a nonprofit type thing, not quite, but still good, getting more popular. For Illinois, the WISE programs, Worldwide Youth in Science and Engineering, they have some programs that, depending on the year, are good entry level programs and selective too. For life science stuff, all pre college programs are built kind of equally. Georgetown gives a lot of hands on work, like $8,000, just so you know. Stanford cardiothoracic surgical skills program and clinical anatomy program, those are not impossible to get into, but they're not easy to get into also. Those are both very good. They're day programs, 2 weeks apiece. One of them gets you exposed to a cadaver. The other one, you do like surgical skills suturing on fake skin, but both very, very good. Not cheap, as nothing at Stanford is, aside from Simmer and Grips. Political science, Georgetown, great. American University, great. USC, very good. For political science, if you, it would, I could go, it depends on what you want. If you wanted something that was getting you exposed to high level stuff and a good addition to the resume, these are excellent. Could you, get a lot out of doing stuff with Smithsonian volunteering, Library of Congress volunteering, political involvement volunteering, youth advisory councils that are all free 90 free? Yes, you could. For humanities stuff, Stanford Pre-Collegiate is a good entry-level program. There is, yeah, but I'll leave that at that one. That is open now. Online classes only, no residential stuff, but good niche, cool things. And for arts, the UCLA DMA, it's also known as DESMA, Design Summer Media Arts Program, is fabulous. The UCLA programs are really good. I think that they're underrated. They're niche, they're interesting. A lot of them are online. A lot of them, there are a lot of them that are face to face that offer the housing. There are some that are face to face, but they're just commuter. So if you can get an Airbnb, it can wind up working out well. But they've got good stuff. They've got the DESMA program. They've got a very good intro to physical science program that's like a chemistry, chemical engineering exposure. We've had a couple of students that have done that, and it's real. It's a nanoscience program, very, very good. They also have an architecture program. Yeah, UCLA has good summer stuff. Okay, let me see this. Oh, yes. All right. Great question. There was a there was I don't want to do that. There was a question about the about what Cosmos is. Pardon me for not mentioning that. So Cosmos is the University of California summer program or the California State summer program for math and science. Uh, you can only apply as a California resident. So so yeah, there's that. It's an excellent program. It's this year. It's expanding to another campus, UC Merced. So it's got like a dozen clusters, as they call it, individual research and project areas at each of 6 campuses: Davis, Irvine, San Diego, Santa Cruz, UCLA as of last year, and Merced as of this year. It's subsidized by the state, so it's not super expensive compared to other things like I'll get to, like Columbia Summer College. Uh, but it is an entry level program for the content. For the acceptance rate, it's like a super high level program because, as I said, from the Bay Area, you have, you know, 8, 10, 15% acceptance rates, I'd say, for the majority of the clusters. But it's not a sophisticated program. I mean, you look at most of the clusters, it's not like they're doing publishing. Like UC Santa Barbara Research Mentors Program, you're coming out and you're even like ASDRP off of Warm Springs and Fremont. You're doing Southern California Undergraduate Research Conference for Cosmos. I mean, you're doing some field works, you're doing some field trips, you're doing a couple of classes. So but the thing is, it's great for UC admissions. It's one of UC's babies. It pops when you go to the UC application. The Cosmos summer program pops up as a pre-populated summer program on the drop down. So if you get in, particularly as a pre-rising senior, and you want to go to UC, fabulous. Yeah, good question. Pardon me for not mentioning that. Okie doke. So, great question. Please continue to ask them. And now, as I implied, because I keep, I've got 3 kids, and I'm always, the price point of everything is always going to be something. They go through like 3 gallons of milk every 2 days. There is, in my opinion, an inverse relationship between the cost of a program and how much it impacts the admissions process. The one that seems to be an exception is the Management and Technology Summer Institute at the University of Pennsylvania, because that thing's like $9,000. But it's still, as I said, it feeds into the Jerome Fisher program in management technology to the tune of like 30% from what I've seen. So, but yeah, the inverse relation between cost of a program and its influence on the admissions process. And you can see here the big culprits: Columbia Summer College. This year, 12,764 per session. Last year, 12,100 something per session. So every year, what's that? 5%. With in contradistinction to the Columbia University Science Honors Program, which is for local students from New York and New Jersey. It's super selective. It's got a hardcore screening process, heavily subsidized, and it's like nothing. That one is really good. The Columbia Summer College is, I mean, it's great for what you want. It's great for like living in Harlem and getting credit from a Ivy League school and being in New York. It's not necessarily great for impacting the college admissions process. Similar, I would say, to Stanford Summer Session High School. If you're going to be living there and doing concurrent enrollment at Stanford, which generally offers the same classes as Foothill College, then you're looking at a high cost. That's not going to wind up playing out too well in the admissions process. As a matter of fact, doing something at Foothill would be better for the UCs. Why? Because Foothill has a UC approved course list. Stanford concurrent enrollment classes is going to be hit or miss. Just like with like even UC extension, you want to make sure something's accepted at UC. You want to make sure you get like the grade boost for UC. Then you do it at a California Community College class, and we work together. And with like Shirley and Kara and Jenna, we go through assist to make sure that it's UC approved. Or in the case of Foothill, it shows the UC approval right on the course list. Now, the Stanford Summer High School, in contradistinction to GRIPS, the genomic research program, no cost. So there you go. Many more illustrations of this are out there, but you decided to, you know, I could take some pot shots at Stanford and Columbia. Um, all right, another rule of thumb, not for life, but at least for college admission stuff. Okay, ooh, good. Another question. All right, does that mean we should only go after free programs? Not necessarily. I would say that you should go after programs that are going to fit you. There's nothing about the paid for programs that is going to be bad. It's going to help in a lot of ways. It's just not going to help as directly as something as a free program would. If you're a rising 12th grader and you've got, okay, no, good question. And I'll get to the second one. Why is there an inverse relationship? With the I would say that in the case of the program, if you're a rising 12th grader and you're admitted to a program that's a free program, that's a NASA program, that's a program that comes with a stipend, or Brown Summer College, you go to the program that's going to be the free program. Now, if there's a choice between doing absolutely nothing or Brown Summer College, taking an in-depth class on abnormal psychology as somebody that wants to go into psychology, and you're just like flush with cash and you don't care about the cost, and it's going to be a credit bearing program that'll probably bump up the grades for most schools, then go for it. Yeah. It's all about what the other options are, and it's all about what you're, I mean, really with your relation. I mean, I hate to keep coming back. I know it's so absolutely gauche, so tacky to talk about money. But with something like this, if your relationship with money is one that, like, we could part with this amount of money and have no problem with it, then they're very, very good, I would say. I would say that especially if you have the choice between that and like nothing else. Now, again, it's all about choices. So if you have the choice between Stanford Pre-Collegiate or the Stanford Summer High School thing, and let's do the Stanford High School thing. Rising 12th, Stanford High School, $18,000 residentially. Should you do that? I would say in almost no circumstances, unless you're an international student that has always dreamed of this and needs a residential program to study what you want to study over the summer. Otherwise, you're a local student, you want to do CS. Like I said, you can do tons of DIY stuff with that. You could do community college classes. You could do USACO prep. You could do hackathon type stuff. You could do debugging of your friend's cousin startup's code. You could the tutoring doesn't really help that much. The faculty research thing is always available. So I would say in many cases, the paid for programs are great, good additions to the profile, and will indirectly help stuff. They're just not going to directly impact the application process. But in other cases, depending on the student's interest, that it would not be worthwhile. Totally an individual thing, and totally up to the other options that you have on the table. So now the other question: why is there an inverse relationship between cost and admission? I don't know. I mean, well, I guess one thing is if the universities are largely using summer programs to keep the lights on over the summer. It's not something where they're obviously in it to provide a service, but you're providing the service at a cost, and the cost is going to be the individuals are going to be restricted to those that can afford the cost. So if you are, and there are other alternatives that don't have that cost, and those are generally going to be more popular, I would say, with the hoi polloi with the general students. So in the case of something like Stanford Summer College, just the extreme example, or Columbia Summer College, which again is great for what it offers, just not cheap. You're going to have, I would say, fewer students applying for 12 grand for a 3-unit college class than you would for students that are applying for a program with a stipend where they could work for NASA. Just to give an extreme example, not to mock it. But yeah, just like you got something free. I can attest to this just by like doing the financial aid seminars I used to do at UC San Diego. You give away a free breakfast, everybody will wind up showing up. You don't give anything away, good luck getting people to come. Yeah, you give something away, and more folks, I guess. So great questions. Moving on to the next rule of thumb. So first of all, you always need backup plans, no matter what, especially if you are a life science student. Because as I mentioned, life science students, just because of what they're doing, generally gravitate toward programs that are going to be at a university campus, that are going to be face-to-face, that are going to have wet lab exposure. what there so you have a limited pool of those. The competitive ones are very, very, very competitive. And you sort of still, if you want to do something over the summer that's going to entail that hands-on wet lab work, we need multiple layers of assurance, multiple layers of insurance. You need the if you they'll it's just stratified like a college application process. You have your one or two reach programs that, like, for argument's sake, are going to be the Jackson Lab Summer Research Opportunity at Bar Harbor, Maine, and then RMP Research Mentors Program at UC Santa Barbara, which is pricey but still admits at like 10%. Um, Mid-level programs probably do for life science stuff. Um, Probably some of the Stanford programs, you could say, like the CASP, the cardiothoracic surgical skills programs like that would be mid levels. And then you'd have your safeties. You'd have Georgetown. You'd have the Stanford Young Leaders Conference, which is a week-long hepatitis awareness program. Um, and then along with those safety programs, if you wind up doing the week-long program for Stanford, you need to have the other stuff that'll fill in the gaps for the summer. You need that mosaic. So, look into then volunteering if you're 16 plus. CPR certification. Some counties' fire programs will do youth EMT things. It's a county by county thing, though. Contra Costa County does it. Alameda doesn't. Um, and then, other community college classes, other backup things. So you always need backup plans, particularly with the life sciences. We want to make sure we have those layers in there to make sure that you've got something. It doesn't have to be pricey. It doesn't have to be fancy, but you need something. Good backup plans, generally speaking, community college classes, SAT prep, summer college stuff. Like if it's Brown summer college, Harvard summer college, Yale summer college, usually it's not super hard to get into. It's going to cost money. It's not going to be incredibly selective. You'll be taking a class, but it's not going to be something that'll be, it's a class that, like I said, you could take at Foothill for free 90 free. uh, Volunteering, presuming you're of age. And even with something like health sciences, you could usually backdoor your way into hospice work if you're below 16, or a job. Best jobs, as I've mentioned before, dealing with people. You get the worst experiences and the best college essays. Retail, food service, not like working in an air conditioned office at NVIDIA. Not so good backup plans like Cosmos. Cosmos is not a good, like most of the summer programs that you've heard of are generally not good backup plans. Faculty research, and we have that as a component that we work extensively with you on that if you want it. But faculty research, for those of you that have been through the process with us, even if you have something, it takes a while. It's something that, you still got to hit the timing right. You got to make sure you have the skill set. And even then, it can take, and we've had 80, 90 email students that have come through with something, but you got to be persistent with it. So just not good kind of psychologically to use as the backup plan, even though we will, have that as a component of the summer if the fancy summer programs don't work out. Okay. What else do we have here? To give you an idea of the calendar and how things work, we're really, as I said, we really are in the early stages of this. The majority of programs have not opened. Those that have opened, I've been in contact with you. We've been in contact with you about those. And like the Yale Young Global Scholars Program is the most popular one that students apply to early, but even that one isn't super popular to apply to because you get a response back early and you have to commit early. So you have to really, you're kind of locked in a little bit to them. B of A not open yet. Like I said, they've been evasive over the last. They usually open the app in mid-October. They haven't opened it yet. There was a cryptic comment on their website the other day, like, we're planning on doing it and we hope to very soon. Telluride Scholars Program, weird cult that nobody applies to. RSI, very, very limited in an application, 1.52% acceptance rate and a massive application. And Launch X, that's kind of hit or miss depending on what you want to do. Online tech business program, but usually not students' top choice where they would want to apply to it early. So just don't have like fear of missing out. You're all good right now. Now, though, is when you need to start making moves because things are going to open soon. The Stanford programs open actually on December 15th. Cosmos, I think they've mentioned that the prompts are going to be the same, but that application opens on January 6th. We're just planning on it being, similar prompts up until it does. But we'll nail some down before winter break and try to use winter break in order to go through them. Unless they're just super far in the field, like SIP, like if that's the only one you want to do, UC Santa Cruz Science Internship Program, that's got like an April 4th deadline. So we won't do that. Um, but we will work on stuff that will be obviously earlier deadlines. Before the summer break, or before the winter break, you're going to want to start considering who you might want to ask for letters of recommendation. For students in the Fremont Unified School District, this is always a sticky wicket and hard to get around. For students at Lynbrook, I think there's some teachers that refuse to write for Cosmos, or maybe that's Mission Monte Vista. Uh, but yeah, let me, Shirley, Kara, Jenna know when you run into Gabby, or know when you run into an issue, and we'll try and figure out you know how to get around it. A couple of years ago, Cosmos had to remove, like 6 years ago, Cosmos had to remove the letter of recommendation requirement because, if I recall correctly, that the Fremont teachers were threatening to go on strike if they didn't have something written to their contract about compensation for summer program LORs. So they weren't writing anything. And that year, Cosmos, they stopped it largely because of that. They probably have 1,000 students applying from that district alone. But in any case, once we nail down the programs, we'll start on the writing, we'll start on the planning. Um, we'll get the we'll get essays started off and worked on through the winter. Deadlines: January, some Chicago programs, University of Chicago RIBS, research in the biological sciences. I think that's a late January deadline, and they've got another program. It's called Stones and Bones, which I think an archaeology program or a paleontology program. That is the only one that I can remember off the top of my head right now. That's like, no, there's a couple of Penn programs that are due also in late January. So yeah, February and March, most standard deadline. February, March, and April, we start getting stuff back. We have to have plan Bs in place before then. So yes, good question. Do you still ask for recommendation letters even if you don't know which programs you'll be applying to? I would, because you have to get it. Uh, you have to get the request in there at some point. And I mentioned Fremont in particular, just because that gets early. I mean, there's teachers that fill up for college letters of recommendation before spring break. So, for summer program letters of recommendation, I would say, you know, get it in early. And, if it's if they, I don't know, maybe we come up with a good story. But I would say, like, I mean, the thing is, they're almost certainly going to apply to something. I mean, unless I'm all about DIY and doing stuff and we'll go over the passion project things and everything like that. I'm all about that. But if you wanted, apply to something early. So even if it's a matter of just saying, like, I mean, I don't know, one that you might apply to early. Email me and let me know what they say. And if we need to figure one out, then we'll put it in there. Good question. But you got to ask now. You got to ask soon. If you're at a private school, it's not so bad. If you're at Mission, Monte Vista, Lynbrook, competitive school in Southern California, one of the schools in like Rancho Bernardo, Poway, uh, then yeah. Okay. Okay. What teachers would you recommend to ask if you want to try for CS and biochem programs? Anything left-brained, anything STEMmy is fine. It doesn't have to be so niche that it'll need to be like an AP CSA teacher. Anybody that you've had, preferably, my rule of thumb for letters of recommendation for college is generally this. One from the left brain, one from the right brain, both of which you've had for a full year, hopefully as recently as possible, within the 5 core subject areas: English, foreign language, lab science, social science, math. Try to avoid elective, try to avoid visual performing art. In the case of summer programs for STEM stuff, pick a STEM teacher that you've had for like a full year, or somebody that you maybe just had for the first semester, but you really, really, really get along with well. Good question. Keep it up. Okay, case studies. Oh, good. What else do we have? Oh, we have somebody else. Great. Um, for humanities programs, is it still good to have STEM teacher recs? That's an excellent question. I would say it could work. I would say it might not be as relevant, because for something like Stanford Summer Humanities program, is a mathematics teacher going to be able to speak about how well you write, your creativity, independent thought? I mean, math teachers can be dicey even for like letters of recommendation for college because there might not be as discussion or as much as there would be in other classes, for instance. So, but on the flip side, when you look at the schools that actually do prescribe who has to write letters of recommendation, all STEM schools, MIT, Caltech, Harvey Mudd, they'll give you details and say you have to get a humanities teacher. But you don't find like Amherst, Williams, Swarthmore, Middlebury saying you have to get a STEM teacher. So I guess this would be the takeaway from that. For humanities summer programs, STEM wouldn't be bad, but I would say if you could get somebody that could probably attest to the skills that would be showcased in a humanities summer program, I choose that one. Ultimately, though, this is what I always ask. On a scale, usually on a scale of 1 to 10, how good would the letter be? And just pick that person. How good would it be in terms of the factors of independent thought, creativity, integrity, opening discussion, things of that nature. Um, Very good question. Okie doke. Let's go to case studies. Everybody likes case studies. These are, I hope I've changed the first names. Let me just see. But these are real students. Okay, I got Arvond X in there, fake name. So I've got 6 students in here that, like I said, I tried to select students that had some success last year, but weren't all like, HYPS, like US Bio Olympiad silver medalist. It's like students that are, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit mortal. And I think that probably, they all really exhibit the well-rounded with pointy parts aspect of the program. Even the student that is the CS admit to Cal is still got a lot of got other things going on that are artistic and leadery. It's not all engineering and CS stuff. But let's start off with Arvond X, admitted to Cal. This was a student that was. Oh, I forgot to mention something with him. Okay, Cosmos, UC Santa Cruz, really interested in environmental science, really interested in paleontology and study of dinosaurs, really interested in environmental science and life sciences. 2 publications and legitimate publications, 3 college research positions, one with Harvard, one with Southern Illinois University, and the third one I can't remember. Student advisory board with Anna Eshu, USABO semifinalist. That was impressive. And the art awards in paleo arts, where he would draw and color accurate depictions of dinosaurs. So these are all things that I would say are not bananas. And Berkeley and LA admit both. Cosmos, good, but not a slam dunk to anything. Research positions, there was a Harvard one that mom got him, but the other ones were kind of regional schools. He did lots of publications, and he had the Anna Eshu leadership thing, but it wasn't like he was captain of the football team and president of the senior class. His big thing really was the research and the academics. And as I neglected to mention, one of his big things was a passion project that he did, which I've mentioned to many of you, where he wound up exploring the robustness of the population of a salt marsh mouse in the saline ponds around the South Bay. And it was a killer research project that was all him. Locally oriented, local impact, brainy, got some good external recognition from it. Really, really cool. But good, but not over the top. And he had some good well-roundedness. Mostly he was kind of niche in the research stuff, but it worked well for him. Okay, next one. David H., Carnegie Mellon, Stats and Data Science. Really good. Nothing overwhelming. UC Berkeley Roar, a lot of you have done that. Inspirit AI, a lot of you have done that. USACO Silver or USACO Silver, depending on where you put the emphasis. That's tough. Amy Qualls, that's not easy. Multiple club presidency, not fancy clubs like Data Science Club and things like that. Varsity baseball, so played a varsity sport, did a lot of volunteering and did abacus stuff. So these are things that, maybe the USACO and the Amy Qualls notwithstanding really are, I'd say quite, achievable I mean, but the Amy Qualls and USACO Silver also too, if you sink the time into like writing out the problem sets and stuff. But stats and data science, Carnegie Mellon, good win. Good grades on all of these. Good grades on the last one. Stats and data. Actually, he was. He didn't have any. He didn't have any B's. Bio didn't have any B's. Kenta had a B. But multiple college research positions with Tufts and Duke, second estate science fair with a lot of machine learning concepts as applied to biology. Had AI and machine learning research projects, a tech company intern, multiple computing awards, but not anything that's not anything that's like international, just like local, like Toshiba stuff, Toshiba Vision stuff, but nothing that's over the top. Awards with HOSA, Health Occupation Students thing, but that's not tough. And Eagle Scout, which a lot of you will wind up getting. Um, so at UC Berkeley, CS under College of Computing, Stats, and Social Science, Computing Stats and Society, 1.8% acceptance rate. Okay, Allison C. She is great. She is like awesome, just like sunshine everywhere. And you can see by the profile, ASB president, varsity cheer captain, tons of service with like depth and leadership, multiple service oriented leadership positions. Like if there was a needy population of humans out there, she would wind up taking care of it. Camp counselor, link crew leader, club coordinator, had some economic stuff in there just for window dressing for the academic stuff because she was really more of a gal that was kind of like the social leadery one rather than the bookish one. But you need the bookish thing too. I mean, it's not like aside from like University of Mississippi, people aren't getting in on their like, you know, I don't know, just making jokes at Ole Miss, but people generally aren't getting in with stuff that's not academic. You need that part of it too, so you got to have that in there. But as you can see, the leadership stuff here is just so impressive and so good that it's going to dwarf any academic stuff that she had. Also a Cal admin. Cal is one of those schools that you can really ride in the leadership. But not this young man on the left, Alan C., who had really good stuff, but not over the top. Cosmos, UC Santa Cruz and Cosmos, UC Berkeley Roar, and Spirit AI did a project that was related to biology and life sciences. Did the Illinois Tech Cybersecurity Program, and some of you know how easy that is. Pay $350 and you're in. Eagle Scout, which is a good program, and some first robotics awards from Irvington. Not not all A's, but nothing bananas as far as the selectivity. But Cosmos helped a lot. The kind of the focus and the niche field helped a lot. Um, all right, the last one. So here we got the world beater. So Jenny H, Stanford for physics, 2 Stanford lab internships, both like really good and like high level stuff that she was working on over multiple years. Caltech summer science program, get stuck in the middle of a desert in Southern California, taking all your devices away and track the movement of a comet with high powered telescopes and nerdy math stuff. UC Santa Cruz SIP, the science internship program, did that as a rising sophomore. That's one of the reasons that you can, and it's not a bad idea to throw your hat in the ring as a younger kid on something like Cosmos, just or SIP, because if you get in, then it sets you up for a lot of other things. With STEM stuff, and I didn't include this in this presentation, but it used to be one of my kind of like little core pieces went back in like a long time ago is the step ladder approach. You start off with Johns Hopkins CTY one summer, you use that as leverage for Stanford Pre-Collegiate the next summer, you use that as leverage for Cosmos the next summer, and you move up one every year. So, it doesn't really work that way in real life, but this is one way it probably did. She was really good though otherwise. Yusufo bronze, semifinalist twice, 4 times Amy Qualls, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, Yusuka, obviously. Yusako silver, multiple club presidencies, and speech and debate captain. Something else here is that you don't need to be everything to everyone. There's no sports on here. There's no arts on here. So it's like I was talking to a family last night and we were speaking about like group work, with students 9th grade. She doesn't have much that's going to wind up being kind of group oriented. But playing with others oriented. Well, first of all, you can get that because kids in 9th grade. But the second thing is, like I said, you don't need to be everything. You need to fill a niche. I would say that the good rule of thumb is to be well rounded with pointy parts, but exceptions prove the rule, as they say. Uh, Exceptions test the rule. So there you go. She's more angular, bookish, but still, not a shut in. Speech and debate. Had this other club that she was a president of that was like a moral issues club. So they're just, as I said, kind of, academic, not necessarily. She's not like, I mean, the perfect thing would be to have her and her as roommates if they went to the same school. That'd be absolutely wonderful. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that. Okie dokie. So I'm gonna take questions in just a second. So next time, no, our next presentation, I'm probably gonna do it after New Year because it's just nobody's gonna, between now and Christmas is like the liminal space, like being in the airport in the middle of the night, not too sure where anything is, everything's piling up. And we don't need to do I wanted to do the summer program stuff now for the purpose of letters of recommendations and essays, but we don't need that. It's not as imminent for the other stuff that I'm going to go over. Leadership, volunteering, and co-curricular involvement, how to get exposed to that, different ways to do things in school as well as outside of school, extracurricular involvement, research and competitions, how to utilize that, how to leverage that, how to utilize even paid programs like Lumiere, Polygence, ASDRP, Pioneer, other ones like that. Not bad, just not, not going to move the needle. And the passion project, in quotes, should be italicized with a trademark and a copyright next to it because it's something that, is the purview of the LinkedIn influencers. Just to give you a little bit of a teaser, though, as to what we're going to go over next time. For leadership, just to give you some input, the more people you lead, the better it is. Size of leadership is going to wind up mattering. You're an editor in chief of 40 people. It's a little bit different than being a section editor of 5 people. Co-curricular, inside school, generally better than outside school, but still doing something outside school like youth advisory councils or something of that nature is a good way to get started. Volunteering, important, but a necessary but not sufficient condition, I would say, to getting into fancy schools. If you do enough to qualify for President's Volunteer Service Award, then do it. And that's usually like 100 hours, 200 hours for older students, but I wouldn't say that you don't want to make it the centerpiece of the application. If you are planning on doing a lot of volunteering, then you need to get something else out of it, either leadership, something that's in line with your major, or something that's not going to take up time without giving the ROI. For research, as I said, Pioneer, Polygence, Lumiere, ASDRP, all of those, fine. They, in and of themselves, will not do anything for the college application. And it's usually better to leave those initialisms off when you apply because AOs are not as in favor of that. However, if you get something out of it, like I said, one thing that's really nice about ASDRP is they have the Southern California Undergraduate Research Conference, which is SCUR, the unfortunate acronym, which is very good. And it's good that, that's terrific. I know that with some of them, they have their own publication, which is usually garbage. But if you can use the research that you get from one of them to actually apply to some kind of a legitimate publication and not something that's run by the research program itself, it helps. If you're doing something in order to leverage it for a science fair project, great. But just do it. ASDRP is not going to nobody at UC cares about that. Nobody at anywhere cares about that. They would care about the college stuff, but for something that's a little bit paid for private program, doing the program itself is not going to move the needle. The results, though, the deliverables can. So I'm not writing those off. They're really good if you use them correctly. If you're using them as like an end in themselves, they don't pay off. Oh, what happened to my light? Oh, you still on? Oh, there you go. All right, good. Okie doke. So that's the teaser. All right, questions. So we've got several. All righty. Would you send the presentation slide deck? Thanks. That's very good. That's almost like a haiku. Yes, I'll have Gabby or Lisa send the whole thing out. Any questions? Let me know with that are on your mind. Obviously a lot of talking in here, but